One of my brothers is a scout for the Colorado Rockies baseball team. As such, he spends a lot of time at an event called the Arizona Fall League. This is sort of the Western version of spring training in Florida. Occasionally, I would join him down there to watch a few games, and we put together an itinerary of things that we wanted to do on the return home. Now, as you move through various areas of New Mexico and Arizona, you run into a very strange phenomenon where you find yourself driving through a relatively normal American countryside with relatively normal homes and yards and stores and things like that. And suddenly you find yourself in what appears to be a third world country. The well-kept yards have vanished along with nice homes to be replaced by, I'm not sure how else to put this, a bunch of dirt and a few ramshackle trailers. And here's the thing, nothing in the natural landscape has changed. It's the same state, it's the same geography, the same climate. But what has happened is that you have passed over a line between, let's say, the state of Arizona and an Indian reservation. And before people freak out about me not saying Native Americans, let me just say that in the time I've spent on these reservations, and it's been quite a bit, the vast majority of people I've talked to would rather be called American Indians than Native Americans. A moniker that more than a few of them seem to find insulting. One fellow told me that he believed it had a bit of a feral feel to it. Now, maybe my information is anecdotal, but take a look at the following quote from an individual who has woke credentials that are beyond reproach. It goes without saying, hopefully, that there were some horrific things done by European settlers, and I'll just say us, to the native tribes when we arrived in what is now known as America, just as there have been horrific things done amongst the tribes themselves and throughout history by conquerors to the conquered. But today, I'd like to focus on what we can do to make things better. Not who we can blame, not who we can use for political gain, but what can we do to make things better? And as in most things on this channel, the very simple and obvious answer is that we should do less, not more. Now, there's some obvious cultural differences between the reservations and the rest of the country. And the cultural differences undoubtedly have an impact on the standard of living on the reservations, but that alone doesn't explain the stark, consistent, ubiquitous differences. What does explain these differences is the fact that American Indians live in as close to a socialist utopia as currently exists in the United States. In nearly all cases, they cannot own property. Let me say that again. They cannot own property. Knowing that, who the hell is going to build a home on a property that you can't sell? This is why you see homes that can be picked up and moved away if and when daddy government, or in this case, daddy tribal leadership, decides that it is no longer convenient for you to live there. Back in the mid-1800s, the United States federal government created the country's first welfare state in the form of Indian reservations that were subsidized by the government, controlled by the government, managed by the government, and in fact, destroyed by the government. But unlike some of the bloated, ineffective bureaucracies within the United States federal government, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which manages the reservations, seems to hide behind a shield of woke indignation, to report to no one, care nothing about criticism, and think that it's their main job to keep running these reservations right into the ground. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Indian Education spends about twice per pupil what is spent in the United States in general outside the reservation and consistently gets much worse scores and much higher dropout rates. You would think that the building of casinos that you occasionally see on Indian lands would make things better, but this also has been a rat's nest of corruption that fails to benefit the vast majority of individual American Indians, enriching a few and ignoring the others. It reminds me of what happened right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where the enlightened leaders decided to issue stock vouchers to the average citizen in the Soviet Union, providing the opportunity for the corrupt but wily individuals, many employed by the state, inside and outside the union, to quickly gobble up most of the equity in the country. Even when they try to do something that has a semblance of logic on the surface, they bungle it. because the overarching philosophy on Indian reservations is that a nebulous someone else, whether it's the U.S. federal government or a cabal of tribal leaders, will manage things. This is another one of those cases that has a preposterously easy fix that would be completely politically unpalatable. Stop controlling them. Over a reasonable period of time, you would find that disturbing transition from wealth to poverty evaporating. And you would also find the American Indians, who as far as I can tell are a clever and resourceful people, would begin to compete successfully on a level playing field with the rest of us. We are punishing the American Indians every single day that we treat them like children or wards of the state, or a people that are incapable of competing in the modern world. We just keep using the heavy hand of government. We're reaching out to them, supposedly to help them with one hand, and then coming down with them with a club of incompetence and assumed victimhood with the other. We don't have to look to far-flung places to see the destruction brought by socialism. We can see it right here. And at least some of our energy should be going to stamping it out here on our own soil once and for all.